Friends, a cruel husband married his Hafiz-e-Quran wife to a dog. What the dog did to the girl shocked even the cruel man, leaving him in anguish. Later, Allah's wrath descended upon him in such a way that it will bring tears to your eyes after hearing this story. You will also reflect deeply. To know the full story, stay with us. In a village, there lived a girl named Zubeda, who was the daughter of very poor parents. Zubeda's father was an alcoholic, and her mother worked in people's homes to make ends meet. Zubeda was very fond of studying, but her mother could not afford school fees. Therefore, Zubeda started learning the Quran at a religious seminary. Before long, she memorized the entire Quran. She never went outside the house, while her mother worked in people's homes. One day, when her mother was unwell, she asked Zubeda to accompany her to work, so they could return home quickly after finishing the tasks. Zubeda's mother worked at a large mansion. When they reached the mansion, her mother started working in the kitchen and asked Zubeda to clean the rooms. Zubeda finished cleaning all the rooms and was cleaning the last one when a young man suddenly came out of the bathroom. Seeing him, Zubeda was startled and quickly stepped back out of the room. That moment left a lasting impression on the young man. 2 days later, Zubeda's mother told her that the owner of the mansion, Ashfaq, had asked for Zubeda's hand in marriage. On hearing this, Zubeda said to her mother, "Mother, he is a 40-year-old man and I am only 16. This proposal is completely mismatched. Look at the disparity, mother." But Zubeda's mother was overjoyed and said, "Daughter, you are very fortunate. The house where I go to clean, you will become its mistress." This translation maintains the essence and flow of the original narrative. Let me know if you'd like to make any adjustments or need further clarification. "Think about it, dear, how your luck has turned in your favor," her mother said. "You will become the mistress of the mansion." Even Zubeda's alcoholic father, who spent his days in a drunken stupor, was overjoyed at the thought. He believed his luck had struck gold and began imagining a life of ease. He thought, "Whenever I need anything, I'll just ask for it. I won't have to beg for money to buy a bottle of liquor anymore. Once my daughter is married into that mansion, I'll collect money from her husband every month." Hearing her father's thoughts, Zubeda felt as if she had turned to stone. She thought to herself, "What kind of father is this, who wants to take money even after marrying off his daughter?" Zubeda told her mother firmly, "Mother, I don't want to marry this man. First, let me fulfill my dream of going to school. Besides, this man is as old as my father." Her mother replied, "Oh, silly girl. Who cares about a man's age? And what will you achieve by studying anyway? Do you think you'll land some grand job? You'll still end up living in this shack. It's better for you to become the mistress of a mansion." Despite Zubeda's countless refusals, her mother went ahead and arranged her marriage to Ashfaq within a week. She didn't even think to question why Ashfaq wanted to marry Zubeda. Zubeda, on the other hand, kept wondering why the mansion owner would choose her. Couldn't he find anyone else to marry? Why was he willing to marry the maid's daughter? Perhaps it was her innocence, youth, or beauty that attracted him. Regardless of the reason, Zubeda soon found herself as a bride. Zubeda had reached Ashfaq's mansion as his bride and was given the status of the mistress of the house. For Zubeda's parents, nothing could bring greater happiness than this. On the wedding night, when Zubeda's husband entered the room, he was not alone. This not only shocked Zubeda, but also filled her with intense fear. He had brought a large black, high-breed dog with him, whose big tongue was hanging out. Zubeda's heart sank, and her face became drenched in sweat. Zubeda had been terrified of dogs since childhood, but she never imagined that her husband would bring a dog into the room on her wedding night. She was confused and scared, staring at her husband. When Ashfaq sat close to her, holding the dog's leash, the dog climbed onto the bed with him. Zubeda, terrified, stepped back and pleaded with her husband, "For God's sake, please take this dog out of the room. I'm scared." Hearing her words, Ashfaq smiled and said, "What's there to fear? From now on, your life and death are with us." Zubeda, trembling, replied, "I'm talking about the dog. I've always hated dogs, and you should know that angels of mercy don't enter a house where there's a dog." Ignoring her, Ashfaq picked up the dog and placed it in Zubeda's lap. Zubeda felt as though her heart had stopped beating. She tightly shut her eyes and held her breath. The dog started licking Zubeda's hands with its tongue. Zubeda felt a deep sense of disgust and despair. She could never have imagined such a day would come in her life. On seeing Zubeda's condition, her husband burst into loud laughter and said, "What's the big deal? Open your eyes, this is just the beginning. You'll have to endure a lot more because all of this is necessary. This wealth, this luxury, it's all because of this dog." Hearing her husband's words, Zubeda was utterly shocked. How could wealth and luxury be connected to a dog? When Ashfaq took the dog off her lap, she finally caught her breath. Ashfaq then said, "If you continue to be so scared, I'll enjoy it even more. In fact, your fear has made me realize that my wealth might double because of it." Ashfaq's words went completely over Zubeda's head. She kept thinking, what kind of man has my mother married me off to, who brings a dog into the room on their wedding night? On top of that, his strange words convinced her that his mental state wasn't right. Before Ashfaq and Zubeda could talk further, there was a knock on the door. Ashfaq got up and went to the door, holding the dog's leash as he left the room. Zubeda sat on the bed, feeling suffocated and silently complaining to her mother. What was she thinking when she blindly sent me off with this man? As Ashfaq had walked in with the dog earlier, Zubeda had been overwhelmed with dread. Now, sitting alone on the bed, she anxiously waited for her husband's return, but he seemed to have gone somewhere else. While waiting, Zubeda fell asleep. When she woke up in the morning, Ashfaq still hadn't returned home. In the meantime, her mother arrived for her cleaning work. Zubeda told her mother everything, how Ashfaq had brought the dog into the room. Hearing her daughter's story, her mother started laughing and said, "Oh, silly girl, these rich people have such habits. They take their expensive dogs everywhere with them and love them dearly. If you want to win your husband's heart, you'll have to befriend these dogs, because his happiness is now your happiness." Saying this, her mother got busy with her work, and Zubeda went back to her room to pray. Whenever Zubeda prayed, she would become entirely unaware of her surroundings. At that moment, Ashfaq returned home and sat down on the floor near her. Zubeda, engrossed in her prayer, didn't notice him. Ashfaq began apologizing, saying, "I had to leave last night for some urgent work. Come on, finish your prayer quickly and get ready. I want to take you out." Zubeda was still making supplications when a servant entered the room holding the dog's leash. Ashfaq lit up upon seeing the dog and said, "Come here, my Dabu. From today she is your mistress, and she will take care of you. And you must also love her." Zubeda was still praying and hadn't finished her supplication yet. Zubeda had just finished her prayer and stood up abruptly, glaring at the dog with a strange expression. She angrily said, "Why do you keep bringing this dog into the room repeatedly? I've told you so many times that angels of mercy do not enter homes with dogs. Because of this dog, I can't even pray in peace. I don't understand the whims of rich people like you. You all seem to care more about dogs than humans." Ashfaq listened to her quietly and then said, "We are going out for a trip. I've already booked the tickets, and we need to leave by the afternoon. Get ready." Hearing this, Zubeda became anxious. It had only been a day since their marriage, and there was no emotional bond between them yet. Traveling to another place with someone under such circumstances felt extremely difficult for her. Moreover, she had never stepped out of her home unnecessarily, let alone traveled far. However, she reminded herself that Ashfaq was her husband, and she couldn't refuse him. Reluctantly, she started packing her belongings. Wrapped in full hijab, she prepared for the journey with Ashfaq. Ashfaq, however, seemed bothered by her hijab. Zubeda's anger flared up when she noticed the dog, whom Ashfaq called Dabu, sitting on the back seat of the car. It felt as though they couldn't go anywhere without the dog. After a few hours, the two of them, Zubeda and Ashfaq, arrived at a farmhouse where Ashfaq said, "We'll stay here for a few days." When Zubeda entered the room, Ashfaq opened a cupboard and took out a dress that was already there. Handing it to Zubeda, he said, "Go and put this on." Zubeda was shocked to see the dress. It was revealing and inappropriate. When she refused to wear it, Ashfaq said, "Oh, foolish girl, we just got married and we're here for our honeymoon. You need to wear this for my happiness. Didn't your father tell you that your duty is to make me happy?" Zubeda silently lowered her head, and Ashfaq forcibly placed the dress in her hands, threatening, "Go change into it, or I'll make you do it myself." Frightened by his threat, Zubeda went to change and returned wearing the dress, feeling deeply humiliated. Her embarrassment intensified when she saw that it wasn't just her husband in the room, his dog Dabu was also there. Ashfaq looked at her and smiled, saying to the dog, "Go, Dabu, bring your mistress closer." Terrified, Zubeda stepped back, but Dabu ran toward her, jumped on her, and began sniffing her face. Zubeda froze in fear, holding her breath, as the dog licked her with its tongue. She felt disgusted and started crying loudly. Seeing her cry, Ashfaq laughed heartily, his laughter echoing through the room. After some time, the dog stopped bothering her, and Ashfaq approached Zubeda. He adjusted her appearance and said mockingly, "What's the big deal? Dabu just came close to you and you're already falling apart. You'll have to endure much more than this. Be brave." He handed her a glass of water, and Zubeda felt slightly better. Through her tears, she asked, "Why are you doing this to me? I married you, not this dog." Ashfaq laughed again and said, "Oh, so that's the issue? I'll resolve that right away." He threw a large sheet over her, and shortly after, 2 men entered the room carrying a file. Ashfaq forcibly made Zubeda sign the documents, though she had no idea what they were. After the men left, Ashfaq smirked and said, "Your issue is resolved now. Look, you're officially married to Dabu." He then yanked the sheet off Zubeda and opened the door, letting another man enter. Seeing the man, Zubeda froze in terror. He was dressed provocatively and leered at her. She didn't know how to shield herself from his gaze and silently prayed, "Oh Allah, please let the ground swallow me." The man walked up to Ashfaq and said, "This time, you found a very young and beautiful girl. It'll be fun to work with her." Zubeda sat with her head bowed, eyes closed, imagining herself disappearing from the man's sight. He lifted her chin and said, "You're very beautiful. With a little effort, you could make a lot of money, and we'll benefit too." The man brought a bag with him, and when he opened it, he pulled out a large camera. Standing in front of Zubeda, he said to Ashfaq, "Send Dabu over. We'll start filming with her." Zubeda was crying uncontrollably, unable to comprehend what was happening. After a short while, Ashfaq returned, having somehow instructed Dabu. The dog jumped on Zubeda and began showing affection. What shocked her even more was that the man in the room was recording the entire scene. A video of the entire scenario was being made. However, this time Dabu's behavior was different. Before she could fully grasp what was happening, Dabu overpowered her. Zubeda's screams echoed through the house, but Ashfaq kept telling her, "You shouldn't scream, you should smile instead." When they weren't getting the recording they wanted, Ashfaq stopped the recording, removed Dabu, and started beating Zubeda violently. "You foolish girl! Don't waste our time. You may be a Hafiz-e-Quran, but now you're married to Dabu. All you need to do is smile and enjoy. Just think of it as if you're with me, not Dabu. This is our honeymoon," Ashfaq said mockingly. Ashfaq tried to explain to her, "I've spent a lot of money on you. I pay your father for his alcohol every month. Now you must work with us." Zubeda, crying, replied, "What kind of way is this to earn money? I feel ashamed thinking that my father sold me for a bottle of alcohol." Then Ashfaq revealed a horrifying truth that made Zubeda's blood run cold. He confessed, "I marry poor innocent girls like you. Bring them here and record such videos. Dabu is a trained dog. He knows exactly what to do. These videos sell for millions. So far I've done this with 40 girls, and it's made me this wealthy." Ashfaq wanted Zubeda to willingly participate in this, but it was impossible for her. How could she form such a relationship with a dog? Zubeda began to despise Ashfaq, thinking, how can someone treat his own wife like this? She realized their marriage held no value. Ashfaq and his friend blackmailed Zubeda repeatedly, forcing her to take part in several videos. Her heart was shattered, and she kept praying to Allah for help. Ashfaq's friend eventually left with the videos, and the dog was handed over to a servant. Zubeda was in a terrible state, thinking perhaps the worst was over. However, she was wrong. The next day, Ashfaq's friend returned, and the same horrific cycle began again. Zubeda didn't know how long they planned to keep her there. Ashfaq showed no mercy, while Zubeda spent her nights crying on her prayer mat, pleading with Allah for deliverance. She wept so much that her prayer mat was soaked with tears. As she stood up, she said to herself, "A day will come when the oppressor will be held accountable. My prayers will be answered." It had been 5 days since they arrived at the farmhouse. On the 6th day, here's the translation of the text. Ashfaq's friend entered the room with the camera, and Zubeda went to sit on the bed by herself. She asked her husband, "Why hasn't Dabu come yet?" Ashfaq was initially surprised to hear this, but then smiled and said, "It seems you've understood now." Just then, a servant brought Dabu into the room. Zubeda sat with her eyes tightly closed as the dog approached her. But suddenly, something unexpected happened. The dog leaped at Ashfaq and began biting him viciously. It bit him all over his body, tearing through his flesh. The servant managed to control the dog with great difficulty and took it outside, but Ashfaq was left severely injured. Blood was gushing from his wounds, and chunks of flesh were torn from his body. His cries echoed throughout the house. Zubeda, terrified, curled up in a corner and silently watched the scene. A doctor was called, but it took a long time for him to arrive. Upon examination, the doctor explained that the dog had gone mad. He revealed that the dog was given special medicines to enhance its sexual aggression, which had resulted in its madness. Ashfaq's condition deteriorated as he exhibited symptoms of the same madness due to the dog bites. The doctor managed to stop the bleeding, but Ashfaq's mental state worsened. At the hospital, it was confirmed that his condition was untreatable. Not only had he gone insane, but he had also contracted a dangerous virus, one that could kill him soon. Ashfaq had chosen a path of sin to make money, and now that same path had led him to a painful death. He screamed and acted like a madman, running around and attempting to bite others. Eventually, people locked him in a room. Even his wealth couldn't save him, as no medicine existed to cure the virus he had contracted. Ashfaq's friend, horrified by his condition, repented for his sins. He deleted all the videos they had made and broke his camera. Overwhelmed with guilt, he fell at Zubeda's feet, apologized, and left the area forever. Within a few days, Ashfaq succumbed to the virus and died a painful death. As Ashfaq's wife, Zubeda inherited all his wealth, but she refused to use it, considering it haram, forbidden. Instead, she donated it to the poor and needy. She used part of the wealth to establish an orphanage and a madrasa, Islamic school, where she taught Quran to the girls of her community. Zubeda also worked a modest job and rented a small room for herself, cutting all ties with her parents, who had sent her into the hands of a predator like Ashfaq. Zubeda believed that her parents were unworthy of the title parents due to their actions. She reflected that no matter how much oppression one commits, Allah's justice eventually prevails. If Dabu hadn't gone mad that day, Zubeda's condition might have been no different from Ashfaq's. She dedicated her life to helping others. She gave a part of Ashfaq's wealth to the orphanage and built a madrasa, where she taught Quran to the girls in her community. She educated them about the changing dynamics of society and taught them how to face challenges. Zubeda's life now revolved around the Quran and the madrasa. Her mission was to warn girls not to trust blindly and to protect themselves in a world heading toward destruction. Zubeda became a guiding light for the girls in her community, offering support and knowledge. Her life was now solely dedicated to goodness. May Allah protect us from haram deeds and guide us on the path of righteousness. Ameen. Righteousness is the yoke of their lives. Ameen. Dear friends, how did you like this video? Please share your thoughts in the comment box. Don't forget to share this video with your friends and family. Subscribe to our channel, African Tales 2.0, to become part of our family. Thank you.